Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Tokuskai Inside Look podcast. This episode is brought to you by our amazing patrons over at Patreon, who have generously donated as little as a cup of coffee to as much as the cost of a bowl of ramen per month. You can find episode videos for these interviews as well as deeper dives into other subject matters at patreon.com/Tokuskai Canada. If you are enjoying this work, please consider supporting us.
Well, my name is Nicolas Diaz. I'm 41 years old. Now I'm the president of the Chilean Kendo Federation. I have been practicing Iaido, Kendo, Kenjutsu, Kendo and Iaido for a little more than 20 years. I also have been doing Kenjutsu for around 3 years already. I also have some background in karate, aikido. I started when I was at the school, junior high school. I started aikido, and when I was in the elementary school, I did some karate. But finally, I like more kendo. I was always searching for like sword-related martial arts, so I find kendo, and then I start doing kendo. After that, I had the great experience to go to the International Budo University in Japan, in Chiba, and there's where I started Iaido in the year 2001 with a really great sensei, Kaneda Kazuhisa sensei, that I think that maybe some of you may know him. He's my sensei until now. I train with him every year. I travel to Japan at least once a year, sometimes twice a year, to do some Budo training. And well, I started here in Chile after I was in Budai. When I came back to Chile, I keep doing Kendo, of course, and Iaido. I start doing the Iaido here, and maybe the first Iaido like a group dojo with some members of my Kendo club in that moment. I'm sure that you know some of them. I don't know, Julio Villarroel, Memo, Cristian Sumel, Su Flavia. Some of them started doing Iaido in the dojo. Some of them already did Iaido, but most of them start training with me at that moment. Well, now I'm Renshi Rokudan in Kendo and Iaido Godan. I was supposed to do my Rokudan Shinsa this year, but because of COVID, I wasn't able. They moved the dates of the examination. So if I'm lucky, I will do it next year. I'm not in a rush, so that's okay for me. It's fine. And here in Chile, I founded my dojo that's called Santiago Budokan. That is been already for 7 years. We have around 70 practitioners in Kendo, Iaido, and well, Kenjutsu. And I'm very happy with this project. It's been very difficult now in the pandemic to make the project work because we lost the place where we usually train. So now I did find a new place. I'm starting to make it look like a dojo, like a Japanese dojo. That's what I always try to show. Show is not the word, but the experience that I want to share with the people that practice with me. So nowadays has been very difficult about that, but we already have a new place that I'm sure that we will make it as good as the last place, and it's bigger. And I've been doing. I kept training during all this the pandemic. You know, here in Chile, the lockdown was pretty tough. We have like around 5 months of full lockdown. You wasn't able to go anywhere. Now it's a little bit lighter, but still, if you want to, we can now, in this moment where I live, we can do some training, but maybe 10 people. I think that now it's around 10 people, and if everything goes start to getting bad, like, as you know, it's now in the North Hemisphere that there's a second wave that's hitting pretty tough. So I think that I hope that we can do some training during the summer here in Chile, and I don't know. I'm just going forward as every Budoka should do. So it's like a little a bet, but I'm sure that it will work fine, But now we keep doing training online, Iaido, Kendo. So I'm happy about that. The people also, there's a lot of people that stop training because they don't like the online version of it, or because they lost their jobs, because maybe they got sick, they are being busy with a lot of things. So I understand that, but I also feel that there's a lot of people that really want to keep practicing, and I'm sure that everything will reactivate, I hope soon.
Yeah, and it's times like these that someone like you that has dedicated so much of your life to Budo and is not fazed by lockdown, like you still do whatever you can to make sure that there is a dojo, even after losing a dojo so quickly, finding another one. That's quite impressive.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that you as a kid would grow up to be someone like president of the Chilean Kendo Federation, have Gokudan, go to Japan all the time, take other people and introduce so many people. Maybe we can go back to your childhood. Like what were you like as a kid? What were you interested in? And was there access to all this Japanese stuff that initially?
No, really not at all. I think when I was a child, I was very lucky because my mother always, if I like anything, she will encourage me to follow it. It doesn't matter what it was. My parents really didn't do sports at all, I think. They was always like encourage me more to doing something like art, like drawing, maybe music. They draw, they play different instruments, so they are more in that. But as a child, I always like a lot sports. I did a lot of arts, but I really like a lot of sports. I was in the, I don't know, in the soccer club, in the volleyball club, in the basketball club, but also in the arts club, in the chess club. I was really into all that stuff when I was a child. And we lived in a small town in the south of Chile, in Punta Arenas, which is like the southern town in Chile, real like almost Antarctica. It's really in the south. So after that, we moved back to Santiago. My parents were separated by that time. My father was living here in Santiago, and I was living with my mother in Punta Arenas. But with my mother, we came back to Santiago with of course, my brothers, my sisters also. Here is the capital of Chile, so the life was a lot different than in a small town, So I moved here, and I had a little of bullying in the school. So my mom she told me like, maybe you should do something like a martial art, because you already like sports, and that's kind of mix between sports and arts, and I don't know. So she encouraged me. I started doing karate, but when I was around 12 years old, about that, I kept doing, of course, soccer and all that. And then I started with the martial arts in a karate school, Goju Ryu style here in Chile. And I was doing some years, but then I started to research more martial arts, and I really found, after I read a novel that was called The Ninja. It's a novel, and I don't know, Eric van Lustbader was the guy that wrote it. And in that novel, that was a really big one, I found Kendo, the word Kendo. That was my first approach to that word, So I started researching, and in Chile it was impossible to get Kendo at that time. Karate, maybe it's the easier to do martial art around the world, because you only need like a karate, and if you don't have a karate, you can just use sportwear and just do karate. It's not that difficult. And the place also, the surface, you don't really need like a special, like in judo that you need tatami, or in kendo that if possible you need like the wooden floor. So I started doing karate, and in my experience in karate, I also found aikido, and I also realized that aikido have some in the curriculum of aikido, you had some sword practice, like it was the aikiken, and you also have the jo with the aikijo. So I was really interested in aikido because of that, not because of aikido really, So I started doing aikido, and after practicing aikido about a year maybe, I realized that the Aikiken and Aikido, it was like, I don't know, like the 10% of the training that they do at my Aikido school. So I just stopped doing Aikido. And by that time I was around 16 and I was really into soccer. So I was playing a lot of soccer. I did some testing to get into a professional soccer team that went okay. So I stopped martial arts like at stop and start doing only soccer. But afterward, I stopped doing soccer because I start studying communications. That is my major. And that same year when I stopped doing soccer, I started again doing martial arts because one of my aunts told me that she found a kendo school. That's how it started. And I went to that school, and I was like amazed when I saw this thing, and I was like, okay, this is the thing that I want to do. Period. I'm gonna start doing kendo, and I drop everything else. I start doing kendo, and that was around 97, the year 97.
So all your family, though your family knew that you wanted to do kendo, you were just telling
Yeah. Because they
family?
really knew that I like sports, but I really like martial arts also. I mean, I stopped doing Aikido and karate, but I was still like into martial arts. I still keep studying. I like a lot to study, to read articles, to research. So everyone know that I like it. I just stopped it because there was no kendo, or Iaido. Maybe I didn't know even Iaido by that time. I only knew the word kendo because I read it in this novel. So I researched, in that time in Chile, internet wasn't a thing that was everywhere. You have we have internet in home, but it was really difficult to search for a good good material in internet, and also very slow, like the modem, like the telephone modem. So it was like not very good. But my aunt find this school that was in fact like the first group that started doing kendo here in Santiago. That they started first in other place. It was a karate dojo, a Shotokan karate dojo, but they already had like a real kendo studying group, and they was doing kendo. They have some support from the embassy. There was a sensei that was a Japanese woman that's called Tazuko Ichinohe sensei. That was my first sensei in kendo. She was working here in Santiago because she was a member of JICA. I think that you may know JICA. So she was here in Santiago not for kendo, but because of her work at JICA, and she was living here in Chile for, I don't know, 20 years or 30, I don't know. She retired like 3 years ago, and she went back to Japan. She lives in Hokkaido. I was lucky enough to go and visit her 2 years ago, I think, after I passed my Kendo Rokudan. It was like 2 or 3 years ago. I don't know. Like this year is like doesn't exist, So it's like I don't know. So she was like she really inspired me. She was really a good sensei, so kind, so like a Japanese real. She was like a kind of mom. She always take care about me because I was the youngest guy in this group. Maybe I think. So she also encouraged me afterwards to go to Budai. She introduced me to the director of the program that I did in Budai, in Japan, in International Budo University. So she was very important in my Budo career from that point on. And that's how I start doing Kendo. And then I start Iaido when I went to Budai, my first year in Budai. That was 2001. And in Budai by that time, it was Kaneda Sensei, one of the more famous sensei, because he was the champion in Nanadan. He had been champion every year since, I don't know, like 7 years in a row. So then everyone told me, you should do Iaido because the sensei here in Budai is so famous and so good. And, and of course, Iaido, sword, I was, okay, I'm into that also. So I take the Iaido class. And since that, I started doing Iaido and never stopped anymore. It was my first real approach to Iaido with the sensei, because I already knew Iaido. In fact, I had a Yaito already. I traveled to Japan with my Yaito because when I did my, I don't know, Shodan Shinsa here in Chile, there was a commission that came from the International Kendo Federation to Chile So in Chile, of course, Kendo was really young, so we didn't have senseis to have a testing or grading. So the International Kendo Federation sent these missions. Maybe most people that does Kendo and Iaido know these missions that they send in the countries that are developing their federation. So they send, I was able to see 2 missions maybe before we start being a Kendo Federation. And in one of these missions, one of the sensei was also, it was in fact Kishimoto sensei. I mean, I think that most of you may know him. Kishimoto sensei was the leader of the delegation because he was Hachidan Hanshi, and he did a Iaido demonstration, and there was another of the sensei that also did Iaido. It was funny because here in Chile there wasn't Iaido at all, so the most the important focus was on Kendo, but there was like 5 senseis. The leader was Kishimoto sensei, that was a Iaido sensei. There was also Ikeda sensei, that it was from the police. He was from the police, and he did Jodo. So they did a multi-seminar teaching Jodo, Iaido, and Kendo, and that was like the start maybe of Iaido here, because we had this first like approach to Iaido and Jodo also. I took my Jodo EQ that time. I remember in that seminar. I didn't do Iaido, but I saw the classes. I really like it. So I thought, okay, when I go to Japan, I brought a Jo and a Iaido. But doing Jodo in Japan is not that easy as most may think, because there's not so much school, so you really need to search for one. And in Budai, sadly, there wasn't Jodo at all. So, but there was Iaido, and I started doing Iaido together with Kendo and Judo.
So had you already decided to go to Budai before the mission came, or did the missions come before that first?
No, before a couple of years before, I think. Yeah.
Could you talk more about those missions? Because it seems like a huge thing to be able to have so many seniors come when a country is so young. What kind of impact did you see, and how were they going around the countryside, going to other countries, or how was it all organized? And
at the beginning, I think, since I was really young by that time, I think that the first thing that you need to have a federation in your country, a regular federation, maybe not affiliated to the International Kendo Federation or to a greater local organization such as CLAC or such as AKF. Maybe you have only your federation, or even a club. If it's a small country, I don't know, like Nepal, for example, for instance, or Uruguay, for example, that they have an aggregation. It wasn't a federation. It was like just a group. And Peru also was like that. And some other countries in Europe is the same. So in Europe and Asia also. So if you have this group and you ask for help to the International Kendo Federation, most times they give you that help in the form of equipment such as bowu, shinai, yaito, I don't know, like clothes. But also they send, or they did send a lot of these missions that usually were about 5 senseis, because they have the mission not only go and teach, but they also do the grading, So they help and they help the people to grow not only in knowledge, but also in grade. So if you do that, there's more people, like they came afterwards and they know that, I don't know, there is a shodan, so there's someone that can teach me, and I will learn from him. It's like a motivation thing, I think. Of course, those missions stop when the countries start to develop correctly, I think, or maybe because we don't ask for it anymore, because we feel that don't need it. Maybe there's other countries that need it more, so we stop asking for it. But that's the mechanic of the missions. It works like that. You ask for it. If there is a possibility, the International Kendo Federation will send it to you. Usually are more attached to Kendo. I never have heard of a mission for Iaido only, for example, or Jodo only. There always is Kendo, and if you're lucky enough, you will have Iaido usually, and maybe Jodo. I remember the first mission that came to Chile that I saw I wasn't doing kendo, but that time I didn't know what it was. But they had a sensei that was like a soke in kusarigama, so he also showed kusarigama in the embu that they did, and I was like, "Oh, I never saw that. You know, it was so fun and interesting. I don't know, like, because it's very difficult in Japan even to see kusarigama. So they came to Chile to teach kendo, but finally in the last embu, the sensei showed kusarigama. He destroyed some, I don't know, melons or stuff with the. It was amazing.
So you were relatively young when you went to IBU. Could you talk a little bit about that, the impact of that trip and that school to where you wanted to go when actually maybe it's like even what you wanted to do when you grew up?
Yeah, it was really fun because I was doing kendo already, but that time it was when I decided it was the year 2000, I think, because you need to apply with 6 months earlier, but it really started like 1 year earlier, you know. So maybe in '99, I was introduced to the sensei that was the head of the international office. That it was really fun because he came to Chile every year because he did judo. Bunasawa sensei. He was a judo. He was judo coach of the police here in Chile for some years, like I don't know, 5 years before I met him, and he was already in Japan, but before that he was living in Chile. So he have a strong attach to the Chilean judoka. There was a lot of Chilean judoka that went to Budai before someone went for kendo. I was the first one that went to Budai for kendo, and but that time you only can apply if you were a kendoka or judoka. There wasn't any chance if you are, for example, only iaidoka. It was impossible. You wasn't able to apply. Now it's possible, but in that time it was impossible. So in that moment, I was already into communications. I was studying multimedia, and since I told you before, I was really into the arts. So I was seeing the chance to go to France to study at the school as an art school to study more about digital arts. So that's the thing that I was about to go, and then this opportunity just appeared in my life, and I talked to Unasawa Sensei, and it was like, okay, what to do, you know. I talked to my parents, and I worked really hard to gather the money. In that moment I was in the university, but I was working also. So finally I was able to get the money, and it was like, okay, I'm going to Japan. It's only 1 year, so maybe I will go do a year, then come back and do something else. I don't know, you know. So I even stopped the university because I didn't finish my university by that time yet. So here in Chile, we there's a term that you said I freeze my university, because you can freeze it and disappear for, I don't know, 3-4 years. They come back and pick it from the same spot that you freeze, you know. So I did that, and I went to Japan a whole year. It was like a really amazing experience. I think that I went there in the best age that you can go. I was 22 or 21. I don't remember, maybe 22. The good thing that it was that I was the same age of the senior students. So I was friend of the senior students. So everyone before that respect me a lot. That was really good for me, because you know, in Japan you have all this, I don't know, senpai kohai thing. So that was pretty good for me. It was a very tough year, a lot of training, injuries, missing the people here. You know, it was really difficult, but I think that it was a very, very good experience that changed myself for the rest of my life. And also I was able to start doing Iaido with Kaneda Sensei, which was amazing. I did judo. All the senseis in judo in Budai are Olympic gold medalists, you know. So it was like there was so much good budo there, so much good sensei. Most of them were very open, you know. I don't know, in that time the head coach, or maybe not the head coach, but the shihan of the kendo was Makita Sensei, that was a world champion, you know. Of course, Hachidan. In that moment, I think that was Hachidan Kyoshi, maybe not Hanshi yet, but he was really open to talk with us. I realized also in Budai that you need to learn Japanese to be able to pick up all this knowledge. So I really studied a lot of Japanese. At the end of the first, I stayed for 1 year, and then I decided to be 1 year more doing like a specific studies in Japanese culture, Budo, and there was like some kind of special studies in the same university. So I was there 1 year more, but that year I already was able to talk Japanese enough to understand what the sensei teach me, and also to be able to move a little. I didn't have that much money, so in Buda it was really like a sacrifice for me, because I was training a lot, but I also had to work. In the second year, you don't live in the university any longer, you can't. So I had to rent an apartment. Bunasawa Sensei was I don't know, he signed because for me, so I was able to rent this small apartment there. And I always had to work. I mean, when I wasn't training, I was working. If I'm not in class, I was working, because I had to keep myself in Japan and be able to keep training. So I wasn't able to travel around in Japan. It was almost impossible for me. I was only in Chiba. I went to Tokyo a couple of times, and then I went to Okinawa because of the school trip. At the end of the year, you had a school trip, and every member go to, and we went to Okinawa. So that was the only thing that I knew of Japan, in even thinking that it was like almost 2 years, but I really had a lot of responsibility to pay for everything that I needed, and to pay the university. So it was really sacrificed, but
what were you doing
afterward, it was really good.
What were you doing as work?
Well, I did everything. I was at first I started helping the Spanish sensei in the university with the students, but afterward I said I thought that it wasn't enough money. So then I found myself doing a lot of work in the countryside. I work in the JA, that is like Japanese agriculture. So I was like strong work. Yeah, I went like at 6 a.m. in the morning. I was in the base. We have like a base. And then I went to a lot of different farms in the Japanese really countryside. So I felt like that was a really good time in my life, because I learned a lot of Japanese culture, but the real culture, this thing that I went to there was like a woods, and right in the middle there was a farm that they cultivate rice, and then I went to pick the rice sacks. There was like 30 kilo every bag, and I had to, I don't know, lift 100, 500 every day in a truck, and then go back and then put it down. It was really fun, because I had the opportunity to share a lot with with the students of Budai, but the Japanese guys, that they were from judo, from kendo, from a lot of other clubs, I don't know, athleticism also. It was really fun, and I really like it. That time it was really good. And when you go so deep in the Japanese countryside, most of those people haven't seen at all, and I don't know, a gaijin. So when I went there and they saw me, it was like I was kind of an alien, They start talking to me, and then I talk in Japanese, and they was like, oh my, I talked them in Japanese, but they didn't understand, because they wasn't, I don't know, when they see my face, they can't understand that I talk in Japanese. So they wasn't able to understand me. I don't know. Sometimes not. But it was really fun. And I work in that. I also work in the docks, in the carrying fish, carrying tuna, and working in a very big ice making stuff with all the kendo guys. Also the kendo. I was very lucky also, because in that place the kendo captain was working. So then I was friend with the kendo captain. It was really difficult for the Japanese guys, and for a guy impossible. So we did a really good friendship, and that also opened me a lot of doors in the university, and it was really good. And since it was pretty sacrifice, also the sensei was always really kind to me. Sometimes I get late to the training, or I wasn't able to go because it was quite far, and I went in a bicycle, into the country, like mountains, and I was really, so they always helped me a lot to to do my training, to teach me. In the second year that I was there, I have a really good opportunity, because I became the student, how you can say that, like the teacher help, I don't know, like the guy that is with the teacher, and he teach me how to teaching another guys, a group of Japanese that didn't do kendo at all, and I was his like the, I don't know, assistant. Yeah, that's the word. I was his teacher assistant. So that was very good, because I was almost 6 months doing that in the university, and helped me a lot to understand the way that the Japanese senseis teach to other people, you know. So that was really good for me, because I don't know, like the system, it's the same. It doesn't matter if it's Iaido, Kendo, you know, Judo, it's the same. The way that they have to teach, it's very interesting, and it was very good, because I was teaching to people that really doesn't knew anything. So it was from the real Quijón, from zero to the final part of the course, because it was for credit for the university. So they were obligated to take some of these Budo classes. Because it's Budai, International Budo University, but not all the students that does Budo. There's the university was for studying physical education, and it's called kinesiology here in Spanish. You said kinesiology. I don't know if it's the same in English.
Yeah, I think we use the same
Yeah,
word.
okay. So you study kinesiology or physical education to become a teacher of physical education. So not all of them did Budo, but at some point there was obligated to do at least a semester of Budo during these 4 or 5 years as studies in the university.
So how was the experience of being a teacher's assistant? Did he give you a curriculum, or did you say, try something and then he'll correct you? Or did you watch first and then repeat the same thing? What was the process?
It was like really like, I don't know, the sensei, it was Ijima sensei, which is now the Shihan of Budai, but that time he was Nanadan, but now he's Hachidan. He's like one of the most renowned senseis now for universities in Japan. And he was like really like, okay, here we will start. The people was there. I was sitting in the side of the students, and he told me, no, come here, sit next to me. Okay, now I will introduce you. This is Nicolas. He will be my assistant. So please look and do what he does. And then he just did some introduction, and he just like throw me to the students, and I start like teaching, and he was like evaluating me. I felt like that in that moment at the first. But he always told me, okay, we will do this. He started doing the explanation to the Japanese guys, and then start correcting. And he was always like next to me if I do something good, something wrong. It wasn't, he didn't give me like a manual, you know, like this is, okay, that will be easier. But it was like every class, it was like a different thing, but everything was like a chain, you know? At the end, everything makes perfect sense. At the beginning, I felt that there wasn't much like a plan, but at the end, I saw that there was, and it was like quite like correct, and it worked perfectly fine.
So maybe a wrap up. What else did you do during these 2 years while you were there, and then we can go into coming back to Chile.
Well, I can, when I was there, I was, as I told you, training a lot. I remember a really good experience that I had that I can share with you, that I had, there was a sensei that was here in Chile that he came he lived at Brazil. It was called Karizumi sensei. He did Iaido. So he knew that I went to Budai. And by that moment, I already started doing Iaido with Kaneda sensei. So Karizumi sensei knew, and he sent money to the university, so they give it to me, so I was able to travel where he lived. I already didn't remember where he lived, but because I didn't knew much Japanese by that time, but he was really motivated because he wanted to meet someone from Chile. So I was okay. So it was like the university people put me in the train, and he picked me up like in Tokyo, I guess. And then I went to his home and I stayed with him. He did Kendo and Iaido. He was Nanadan, Kendo, Nanadan, Iaido. And okay, we start doing some Kendo. I was with him every day in his home. I was practicing Iaido, I don't know, like 5 hours a day. Was like really, I was really tired after, I don't know, 3 or 4 days. And in the night, we went to do some Kendo every day. But when I was about to came back to Budai, he told me, well, okay, now I'm introducing you to my sensei, and we're gonna do some keiko at his private dojo. So we went to the sensei, and we was doing it was really funny because I was like shodan or something like that. I didn't talk much Japanese, but that time I understand, but I didn't talk much. So, and the people in that training, they were preparing to do their, I don't know, nana danshins, something like that. So, well, I was there. The sensei stopped. He was laughing at me all the time, of course. And then he teach me something. Okay, it was really cool. It was like this small, bald guy. It was fun. I mean, it was a small dojo, real cool. I was happy. I learned a lot. And that was all. Okay. Then I went back to Budai. I told Kaneda Sensei, well, Kaneda Sensei, they teach me this. I don't know what you think. It's a little different. Of course, this sensei was like 80 years. I don't know, 80, almost 90. So it was like real old school Iaido. So it was very good because by that time I didn't know that there was a lot of Iaidos. You know what I mean? So it was really fun. He was Shinden Ryu as Kaneda Sensei, so it wasn't very far, but they did a lot of different things. Well, the real story here is that we had my Iaido testing for Shodan, I don't remember, or maybe Shodan, I think. And when I went to the testing, it was like, okay, they stopped in a moment to do the Embu. And they started to do the Embu, and I saw this bald guy there performing the Embu. And I was, damn, that was the sensei that I was with him in his private dojo doing some Kendo. You know, it was Sagawa Sensei, the Kyudan Iaido Sensei.
Oh my God.
So then after that, I went to Sagawa Sensei. He was, okay, hello. And I was, oh, Sensei, amazing Embu, thank you very much. I didn't know that you were so famous, but I didn't know anything, you know? So I was really lucky enough to be able to practice with Sagawa Sensei, you know? He was a legend. He died afterwards, a couple of years, you know, but I don't know. To practice with a Iaido ninth dan is not something that happened often. And Sagawa Sensei also, he was so kind, you know, so kind. And we really spent a real good time when I went to his dojo. Afterward I don't know, drink some tea or beers. I already don't remember with Karizumi Sensei, but they were so old, you know, so I didn't knew who they were, you know. But that was a really fun story that I had during that time.
So you came back to Kaneda Sensei and you said, oh, just these old guys. You didn't actually have any names?
No, he didn't know. He realized it in that testing, because every testing that I did in Japan, Kaneda Sensei went with all the university group that did Iaido. So he went with us to the Tokyo Budokan, where it was like the EQ, the Shodan, and the Nidan. I did up to Nidan in Japan. And Sensei, and I told Sensei, oh, Sensei, that is the Sensei that I went to see, like, I don't know, 2 months ago, something like that. And he was, what? He was like, okay, that's Sagawa Sensei. And then I understood. Then I saw, I wasn't really sure. So I took some pictures for that time. And then I went to see the pictures to see if the Nafuda said the same. And it was, of course, Sagawa Sensei. So it was really fun. And then Kaneda Sensei realized it, and he told me that he talked afterward with Sagawa Sensei. And Sagawa Sensei, when I met him, I told him I'm Kaneda Sensei's student, and he told me that he knew him, you know, but it was just like that. Then I went back to Budaya and I forget the name Sagawa after that, until that moment again, you know. So it was really fun.
So man, that 2 years just like jam-packed full of stuff. You're immersed in Budo. You got to feel Japanese culture, go out to the village and do that, train with a legend. And then coming back to Chile, like even now, if someone were to go to Budai, like in 2020, they could say, oh, I'll come back to Chile, come back to Santiago, I can train with Renshi Rokudan and Diaz Sensei. But when you came back, that was like almost 20 years ago, what did you have? There was nothing here. How did you maintain motivation and keep?
Yeah, I think that when I came back with the clear idea to go back to Japan. It doesn't matter how. So I came back to Chile and I was, okay, I will start the university again. I was 2 years away from finishing the university. So, okay, that's 2 years. And then I will apply for the Monbu Kagakusho to be able to go back to Japan and just going to study whatever, because I just really want to do Kendo and Iaido. That was my motto, you know, so at that moment. But around the same time that I went to Japan, we had here in Chile the first JICA Kendo Sensei. O sea, the federation already existed, so the federation asked JICA to send a Kendo Sensei. That was Yamanove Sensei. Yamanove Sensei did Kendo. He was Nanadan Kendo, but he was Sandan Iaido. And I really didn't had much experiences with Yamanove Sensei, because when I came back, after around a month, he went back to Japan because his program finished. It was only 1 year. But Yamanove Sensei, even thinking that he was Nanadan Kendo, he really loved Iaido. So he encouraged a lot of people here in Chile to start doing Iaido. I think that Juan Poblete, for instance, that maybe you know him, he started with Yamanove Sensei. So Yamanove Sensei make every guy that does Kendo here in Chile to try at least once Iaido. So that was a really good thing for the Iaido community here in Chile. I think that that is the point when the people really start knowing Iaido better, thanks to Yamanove Sensei. So since everyone else that year had this experience with Yamanove Sensei, the Japanese Kendo or Japanese ways for the martial arts start to have some kind of base here in Chile. So I really was happy because I came back from Japan, and what did I find the first practice? A Japanese sensei in front of me. You know, so that was like, I really feel motivated. And Yamanove Sensei came back to Japan, and after, I don't know, maybe a year that there was no sensei, or maybe 6 months, we get the second sensei, and then the Chilean Kendo Federation start this very good association, if you want, with JICA and also with the International Budo University, because I was the first one. But already we have been like 15 people that have gone since then. A lot. Some years there have been 2. I remember that when I started the dojo, I started encouraging my students. There was a year that even I sent 3 students to like 3 at the same time, and every one of them was selected to be in the program, because the program it's around 15 people. So you need to send every paper, and you need to be selected for that. So that in this mix, in this wonderful mix with JICA, help a lot to make the Chilean Kendo Federation grow with really good sensei. We already have maybe around 10 senseis from JICA that have come to Chile. So that was really good. And if you, then all the guys that went to Budai and then they come back, since I was the first one, I always was very open to help anyone that want to go, not only from Chile, but from other countries of the region also. So even when I go to Japan, usually if there's some interest for someone, I took all the application forms and I give them in the international office, because everyone know me, so that can make easier the way to do all the procedures to get in Budai, you know. So I think that was really good. So I came back from Japan, and then I start having Japanese senseis again, you know. So that was really good for me. And also when I came back from Japan, since I experienced that Japanese way of training, way of seeing the things, maybe I always have think that way it's for Japanese people, you know. I mean, you need to adapt it to the Occidental minds, because it doesn't work with everyone. So that is something that I think a Budo instructor need to understand, because there's a lot of people that think that you can do exactly the same thing that they do in Japan here, but that is not true, because we have a different mindset. And we have different experiences. We are a child. We're not Japanese. So we have some troubles also with that, because some of the senseis that come from JICA, they have such a Japanese way of doing things that even sometimes the Kendo population, for example, they start to go down, because the people didn't like that way to learn, you know. So it was a really good experience for me. I have no complaint because I love the way of the senseis. That I know that there are senseis that are really tough and really hard, and there's others that are more soft. I'm used to that, so I don't have any problem. But that's because I studied in Japan, so that most people doesn't have that experience, and they don't even need to. They don't have to to have been in Japan to do Kendo or Iaido. So we need to understand that. I think that that's very important for an instructor.
But it also seems like the arts that you did, karate, and if you did some judo too, like those arts are more practiced that way. So like because you have a little more of that background, transitioning into a similar type of training environment for Iaido and Kendo was just natural.
Yeah, it might be, but I think that I mean, you said that Kendo and Judo are more practice. I think that you meant that in the way of that it can be useful in the streets, for example, because if right, so
No, I meant like tendency is there's just a lot of like break falls. You just fall, or you're doing squats, and you're doing a lot of conditional training. So it's a lot of hard work, and then you do kata or whatever. While in Iaido and Kendo, there's the technique, so the waza and kata, but less, like you're not used to doing as much of the conditioning. Like let's do jogging, let's do a lot of weight.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, well, in my experience, when I was training in Japan, that wasn't only for Kendo and Iaido or Aikido. When I went to the judo training, it was judo. It wasn't like it wasn't physical education class. It wasn't like a training. It wasn't do squats and push-ups and sit-ups. Nothing of that. Nothing. We went there and it was judo. Why? Because in Japan, when you go to do this kind of stuff, you do exactly that. If you go to a kendo or a karate class, you do karate. If you want to become stronger, you will become stronger through karate. But if you want to be more stronger, okay, in your free time, please do your sit-ups, your push-ups, your jogging, everything like that. In the judo, they had like a tradition that in winter they went jogging, everyone in the morning to the sea and then come back. But that wasn't for the jogging. It was for the feeling of the group, to become more together, for building a relationship between the guys. It's not for do jogging and become like, I don't know, like a conditioning class for physical education. I don't know, but it's like that. I remember that perfectly. When I did judo, there was no physical at all, only judo. So only judo. Judo was hard enough to really to make every muscle of your body work, believe me.
So we were talking about adapting teaching methods to Chile, and the fact that you have 70 plus members in a relatively small dojo means that you're doing something successfully. So I want to get into the Santiago Budokan and later, and all these things that you've adapted, and then becoming president of the Chilean Kendo Federation, being more involved. But unfortunately, we don't have time tonight to do that. So hopefully we could do that in part 2. But to wrap up tonight's thing, let's finish everything before you started Santiago Budokan. So you came back, you finished those 2 years in communication studies. Then what did you do afterwards?
Yeah, well, after those years, I start applying to the Monbukakak show every year. And I was like, every year, I was really close to get the scholarship, but I wasn't able. Usually, I finished into the last 10 candidates each year, but finally, I wasn't able to do it. So, but that time already, I had a girlfriend. You're starting to change all the things that you think from the past. Now you start thinking, maybe I want to go and, I don't know, start. I already start working, because I start working in a publicity agency for TV spots. I really like that. I did motion graphics. You know, I was really happy with my job at that time. So I start doing this application for the Mombo Kakak show. I didn't get it at the third attempt. I didn't get it, so I stopped. I just started doing. I was working, but I keep doing Kendo and Iaido every day. I never train less than 3 days a week. It's very I always do it in that way. But that time I was training even more because we had this sensei, Shioiri sensei, that was one of the sensei that more like, I don't know, it was one of my mentors, I think, in the teaching ways of Kendo. He was a director also of the International Kendo Federation, but that time when he was here in Chile. So I was really into getting better in Kendo, doing a lot of competitions, teaching also, helping. When I came back from Japan, I was the only guy that taught Japanese in the dojo. So I always was the assistant of the sensei, yeah, because I had to translate. That also opened like unimaginable doors for me, because everywhere that I went, I was the guy that taught Japanese. So we have this really super sensei in Kendo. Every time that there was the Latin American Kendo Championships, I don't know, we had Eiga sensei, Fujiwara sensei, Futagoishi sensei. I can remember all the senseis that every year, Ito sensei from Iaido and Kendo, from the police, you know. So I was the translator for every one of them each time, because Brazil is the bigger country, so they organize almost every time the championships, but they talk Brazilian, Portuguese. Everyone else talks Spanish, you know. So I always was into that. I was helping translating, so that gave me also a lot of real good contacts when I start traveling again to Japan. That was since I came back to Japan from Japan in 2003. I went back to Japan 2015. So I have like this real big window that I didn't went to Japan, but I was exposed to a lot of Japanese senseis here. So that really helped me a lot. And it was like slowly encouraging me to maybe start my own project. I always was teaching in the Metropolitan Kendo Association that did also Iaido and Yodo. But after that, I start feeling that maybe I can do my own project. I wasn't really into that at the beginning, because maybe it also happened in Canada. I know that happened in USA, but you know that the martial arts scene, it's always full of bullshit. Sorry for the word, but you know what I mean. There's a lot of guys that buy their gradings. It's like people that's not really cult, you know. So I really wasn't to be mixed with that people, you know. So I always keep teaching only in the place that we had, that it was from the city, from the city of Santiago. It was a public place. So I was really into that, really happy. But slowly, I started to feeling that maybe it could be possible. I don't know. I'm not really sure. It wasn't finally my decision, but I started my own project after I had a chance. Like everything in life that appears, like when I went to Budai, it was like magic. I don't know. It was like the moment to do it, and I was like, okay, let's try. I don't know if it's gonna work. And finally, it did. It did work.
Yeah, it's all. I kind of expected this, so we should have planned more time. But you've just done so much, and you have so much experience that it would be great to be able to cover that. So let's save Santiago Budokan and later for the next one. Hopefully, if you're open to having a second round.
Yeah, of course.
To wrap up this one, let's just ask some easy questions. I call them rapid fire questions at the end.
Okay.
Some fun ones. So the first one would be, do you have a quote or a proverb or a motto or some lines that you think about or you remember or you like?
Yeah, I really like Kento wa Kokoronari. That's the one that I really like. I usually when I talk to my students, I go to this Japanese Kotowasa a lot, but Kento wa Kokoronari, I like it really much because it's, you know, as you feel is how you train. As you do your Iaido, you do your Kendo, you really can you really can understand even yourself, not only for the people that's looking to you or when I'm looking someone, but to get to understand yourself a lot. So I really like that one. I also like very much like the shuhari concept. I always teach it to my students, the different stages of the Kendo Shugyo, or the Iaido Shugyo, the Budo Shugyo. That's very important for me also. And lately, the one and the more important is for me is Nana Korobi Yaoki, because that it's been so hard times for everyone that I think that falling 7 times, but always stand up again and keep walking is very important nowadays.
Absolutely. And with these lockdowns, it feels like we're falling down every other month and having to pick ourselves back up. Another one would be, are you a dog person or a cat person, and why?
I like dogs, but I'm more like a cat person, I think, because I love they are so what's the word, like they do everything in their own. I don't need to put the chain and go outside. The cat just go outside, come back. I had a cat, sadly it died when I was in a kendo seminar. I came back sadly after 2 days and he was dead. He was a little sick, but I really loved my cat, and I have more cat than dogs, I think. I really like cats. Yeah.
What would you consider your comfort food?
My comfort food? Well, until December of last year, I was a well-eating person. I really like meat a lot. But then, since I get already to 40s, I hit the 40s, I started to thinking more in like, I really want to keep doing Iaido, Kendo, and Budo for long. So I stopped eating meat, and now I'm a vegetarian. So it's been a little difficult because I like meat, but I really I was able to just, one day I said, okay, I won't eat meat any more. And it was like that. I haven't eaten meat since then, and it's already 1 year. I really, it wasn't difficult, but I'm trying to move to be a plant-based, but it's more difficult, but I'm slowly trying to do it only because something of health. It's not like philosophy. Of course, I'm really worried to the animals to be good. I hope that people don't eat animals any longer, because also the meat industry is really damaging the environment. So but it's not for philosophy and not to teach people just do that because the industry is bad. And no, it's because looking for myself and to be able to keep sharing everything with the people that I love and keep doing, I hope, Iaido Kendo until I'm 100 years old. I think that this is the moment to do the change. You know what I mean? So I felt like that, and it was like, okay, let's do it. Boom, and I did it. So now I like to eat chocolates. Vegan chocolates.
Nice. Yeah, well, that going on a different diet when you reach a certain age, like the one I think about the most immediately is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the basketball player that played into his 40s. Like, yeah, he was totally changed the diet, focused on health, and that's what you need for longevity. Like, you don't want, we look at these senseis that are 80 years old and still practicing. We're like, we need to get to that point.
Yeah, of course. I thought that also. In fact, I felt this because I read some papers. I saw some documentaries also about the sport people that did this change and how it started changing their performance. And most people were around this age, 40, late 30s, 50s, and they really felt that change. And that made me think about it. And I was like, okay, I had a injury in my Achilles, Ken, that was like really, it took like 6 months and it wasn't getting better. I went to the trainer, to the kinesiology, to the everything. And it was like, okay. And by that time I decided to do this change. And I don't know, after 2 weeks, it was gone. I don't know if it was because I already was working hard 6 months to make it better, but it was kind of casual, I don't know, coincidence. I don't know how to say that.
Coincidence?
Coincidence. It was like a coincidence, So then it made me think more about that, and then I start doing now vegetarian, but eventually I will become, I don't know, like plant-based. I don't like to say vegan because vegan it's more like a philosophy thing also, but more like plant-based.
Well, you're making a really strong case. It's early December right now. I just turned 40 last week. So yeah, I need to start thinking about that. I have started thinking about like, how do you improve longevity these days? Okay, so last question before we wrap up. If someone were to log into your YouTube account, you know, in the homepage, YouTube recommends you videos based on other stuff that you watched. What would someone see? What are these videos that YouTube would recommend to you?
What kind of video? I usually, when I get to YouTube, it's mostly, I think Budo related videos, usually, because as I told you before, I really like to do research about Budo, all Budo, not only Kendo and Iaido, but in fact, today I got like 2 karate or judo videos also. I usually get Kendo, different Kendo and Iaido videos also, but also video games, a lot of video games, because I play, as I told you at the beginning, I like to play video games also. So it's like a strange mix between that. And of course, lastly, a lot of the Mandalorian things.
Yeah, you're watching the latest episodes?
Yeah, of course. I'm waiting. You know, in a couple of hours, we have the next one.
All right. So this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for taking your time. I hope we can have a round 2 sometime soon to go over,
yeah, of course.
Yeah, the rest of your journey so far.
Yeah, I'll be really happy we can do it, and I'll be waiting for that. I have a lot of to talk about my after I started dojo also, I start going to Japan every year also, so I have a lot of stories also about that. And I hope that you was able to understand my poor English. I'm really sorry about that, but it's what it is, you know.
No, it's very clear. Is there any message that you want to leave with the audience? Something that you just want to share?
I think that, of course, it's about all this pandemic situation. I know that there's a lot of people that are really struggling right now, not only in their lives, but more close to us, maybe because we cannot do proper training. And there's a lot of people that's starting to push it, to do it, like maybe a little recklessly, you know. Everywhere I have seen a lot of people doing Kendo, Iaido, Yodo, maybe with not the correct measures. So I encourage everyone to be a little more patient. I mean, Budo is about patience. In some part, you know, you need to go step by step. That's very good. So I'm sure that the right thing to do now is to take care of ourselves, of the people that we love, and in no time we will be back in the dojo. I'm sure of that. So I encourage everyone to be patient and keep training. If you can do it, if you are in a place that there's no COVID at all, just go to the dojo, do it. There's no problem. But for most of us, be patient, and I'm sure that we will be back in the dojo in no time. Take care of yourself and the people you love.
Thank you so much, Nicolas. Yes.
Well, say hello to Hannah, and please to everyone there in Canada that I may know.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode, because we have a lot more exciting conversations to share as we explore the world of the traditional Japanese martial arts. The Inside Look podcast is made possible by our patrons over at Patreon, so if you enjoy this work and want them to continue, please consider supporting us for as little as a cup of coffee. There are many more ways for us to work together by connecting with us on Facebook and Instagram at tokuskai.canada and subscribing to our monthly newsletter at subscribe.tokuskai.ca. Until next time, thanks for listening.